he appeared to be a man bearing a burden that nobody else could perceive. A burden too great for one individual to handle. Those pictures of him persisted in the thoughts of people who were concerned, depicting a person who has been smothered by pressures too great to overcome on their own, rather than a rapper who passed away too soon. His hometown was the one that was most affected by his passing. Almost immediately, murals started to sprout, on walls and bridges, encapsulating his likeness with phrases like forever and never forgotten. When he used to go around neighborhoods, his music would blast out of vehicle windows. His voice seemed to be unable to be silenced by the streets. Fans told him how his music had helped them go through their worst moments, lit candles, and left flowers. He wasn't only to them an artist. He served as a buddy during times of loneliness, a support system during difficult times, and a reminder that suffering might be transformed into strength. The group's collective sorrow developed into a campaign that demanded that his name not be forgotten or dismissed as just another statistic. But while the story was in grief, shadows started to appear. Threats and subliminal cues to be quiet began to be sent to those close to him. The doors were abruptly shut on journalists who were delving too deeply into the circumstances surrounding his demise. Some sources who had previously spoken freely now backed off. Interviews were canceled, and film inexplicably disappeared. Someone seems to want the narrative to continue to be unfinished in order to conceal the reality under layers of misunderstanding. No response could overpower this quiet, generating suspicion that the disaster was the result of something more significant and hazardous. The query about everyone's lips were simple, but they couldn't be answered. Who was truly aware of Toot's fate? And why didn't they say anything? The world waited anxiously, caught between sadness and rage, and in need of an explanation that never seemed to come. To follow. And as the days stretched into weeks, the sense that something important was being withheld only intensified, drawing everyone farther into an unending tale. For what seemed like hours, the room was silent, despite the fact that just a small after a few moments, everyone's attention was on the quivering figure at the corner. Someone who was obviously carrying greater burdens than anybody else was aware of. Nobody dared to ask the questions that hung in the air. Emotions, however, were simmering under the surface, just waiting for one spark to ignite the whole thing. It went beyond what had been previously said, and instead focused on the fissures that may have been developing for months or even years. Now it was hard to ignore the cracks. As soon as when the first words did come, quieter than anticipated and nearly overpowered by the anxious hearts beating. However, the reality they brought struck more forcefully than any cry. The confession was harsh. On it, another layer of the facade is pulled back with each things everyone had spent so to. Reality unsettling, but it was also harmful. It posed a danger to destroy relationships, set family members against one another, and reveal secrets that some would do something that should remain buried. In a frenzied flood of incredulity, rage, and despair, answers came swiftly. While one person slapped their fist on the table and demanded answer, person attempted to defend, but their voice cracked from the strain of maintaining order. The space was no longer unified to become ground. With every second, the stress increased. Accusations flying, voices increasing, each action growing more aggressive and pointed. Everyone knew in their hearts that things could never be the same again. There had been too much revealed and too much said. One individual stood strangely silent in the midst of it all, looking at every face in the room. At least not in a visible way, they weren't responding like the others. Rather, a chilly calculation was in the background. They're quiet, as if they were formulating a strategy in real time, waiting for the ideal opportunity to use words that were more powerful than a knife. The impact was immediate when they finally talked.